long time ago, after I had given birth to my two children, I found myself with 100 extra pounds on my body and desperate to lose it. So I resorted to counting fat grams diligently and working out excessively to the point where I really depended a lot upon working out in order to lose the weight. And in fact, I did lose a lot of weight. But I was obsessed by the whole idea of exercising and would feel incredible guilt if I didn't, and fear, a lot of fear, incredible fear. And I realized that when I was sidelined by an overuse injury and I began to gain the weight back quite quickly, that I had been using exercise to purge, in effect. I still had a problem with food, but I had been coping with it by exercising more. So that's kind of, that particular part of my life was characterized by that obsession with exercise and counting fat grams. As I was in a position where I had regained extra weight on my body, and I realized my heart had become connected to food, perhaps even more so during that time of intense fat gram counting and exercise, I began to realize I had a heart issue that it needed to be dealt with, and began to ask God to reveal to me how I could lose the weight in a way that would honor and exalt Him and be healthy at the same time. And He led me to begin to trust my body with the hunger and satisfied signals. And I began to do that. I began to very nervously, because I was not yet in a position where I could do that rigorous exercise that I had previously thought was so necessary to lose weight. I began very nervously to try that. And slowly I began to experience some success. Just as I was beginning to reintroduce exercise into my life in what I felt was a balanced way, but still very nervously, because I knew I might be prone to resort to that compulsion aspect of it again, I had an incredible, violent rollerblading accident where it is not a good thing to combine no pads and no helmet, a fast dog, and a steep hill all in one trip, because it resulted in an ambulance ride to the emergency room on Easter Sunday one year. And I dislocated my ankle and broke my leg. And because of the nature of the injuries, was looking at surgeries, 2 surgeries over the summer. And so I was basically immobile. I went from being, relatively active with small children and beginning to introduce exercise into my life again to nothing. So that was a challenging time. All of a sudden I was faced with, well, would I trust God with the hunger, fullness signals there in my bed or not?
And so what did God show you?
During that time, it was really inconvenient to get up and go to the kitchen in a wheelchair on crutches anyway, but I only did if I was really, truly hungry. The hunger signals were less because, of course, my activity was less, and I released 7 pounds during that month of inactivity. So I couldn't argue. And it wasn't muscle weight. Some people believed that, but I was in a lower pants size after that month. So I rejoiced in that. God showed me that I could trust my body. I really could.
Heidi, the Thin Within program offers several tools to help participants achieve success. And one of those tools is the hunger graph. What have you learned using the hunger graph?
That's a really good question, Lori, because when I first was introduced to that as a potential tool to use, I was very reticent to try it. Given my background in compulsion and obsessiveness with graphs and charts, the last thing I wanted to do was place that into the program where I was experiencing God's grace with the hunger and satisfaction. What I discovered, however, was the hunger graph was a tool of grace that God showed me that I don't have to be black or white about this, that if I ate one bite beyond satisfied, I wasn't in some place of terrible condemnation. We could call it a 6, and we could observe and correct and move on. Or we could call it a 7 or an 8 if I had gone that far. But then I could just pick up the pieces and say, Lord, okay, I can observe here that in this particular moment I went too far. Let's move on. And so it was used as a tool of grace for me. Not only that, but using the hunger graph, I was able to, over the course of a week, several days even, I was able to say, I could observe where I had difficulties maintaining the range that I wanted to eat within, the 0 to 5 range. And I began to notice a pattern that every day at about 3 o'clock, even though I was at a 3 or so, I would go ahead and start munching. And so what I began to do was my correction about 2:30 or so, I would begin to spend some time either with the Lord, additional time, and refocusing and recommitting before that urge, that heart hunger or whatever hit at 3 o'clock, before that hit. Or I might just go out and do another activity. I might mow the lawn or whatever, something to keep me from that rut of 3 o'clock, eating just because I wanted to. And so it was a tool God really used to display His grace, and that we could keep on, even through those moments where we had gone a little bit beyond what our goal was.